Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. So I am back on the build for the Squier neck that I was working on. I did a full refret job on this neck in the first few episodes of this series, so take a look at that. The thing turned out great, and I'm really excited to put together a guitar around it. This is a made in Japan Squier neck. It's Wayne's World specific, but it's not going to be Wayne's World anymore after this. I have procured a Lido body from Guitar Fetish, a Guitar Fetish pickguard, a Guitar Fetish back plate, a Squier-esque tremolo. I don't really know exactly where that came from. It's got some nice bent steel saddles on it, which I really like. D'Addario end pin set, a Fleor humbucker, and a nice Switchcraft jack and output plate. So I've got lots of stuff lined up for this guitar, and I really want to get started, so I'm excited. Let's go. All right, so if you were with me through the Squier build, I don't remember if I said this on camera or not, but this heel on this neck measured 2.225 inches, which is roughly 56.5-ish millimeters. I was looking for a body that would really work for me. I found some 57 millimeter bodies, but they were a little bit pricey, and I found a really good Labor Day sale at guitarfetish.com. They're not paying me to say that. They just happen to offer a good deal on some of their stuff. And I got this Lido body, and this is Lido Lido body. This is their Squier spec line of bodies. And this is the coral color. I really just kind of like this color for whatever reason. And I've got some Squier specific parts that I know will fit this body well, like a tremolo that's slightly shallower than a US spec body tremolo, but also it's not a completely Squier spec body. It's a little bit thicker than that. This is a 56 millimeter body, and so when I'm mating these two things together, it fits, but it's just a little bit tight. And I've already done some kind of pre-measuring, and I'll show you kind of where things end up. So when I say this is tight, it moves a little bit in the pocket, but if I push it as far forward as it'll go, it binds up just a little bit on this little edge of this lower horn. And so what I think I might need to do is open this up just slightly right there. And it won't really do anything bad to the finish because it's not really finished much around that corner anyway. I think it just would help it from cracking in the future. It'll make sure that this lines up particularly well and that the neck seats all the way forward in the pocket. So I'm gonna just kind of take a quick look at where things land right now. Let me grab my straight edge. To get started, one of the things I did was I laid a straight edge up against the neck where it really sits naturally, like where it sits naturally well, so all the way up in the pocket. And I'll draw my line on each side. So just set it up against the edge of the neck, draw your lines. All right, there's kind of my outside edges of the neck continued all the way down. The other thing I did was I took this out of the body altogether, and I took a straight edge and I tried to find the center point of the body according to where they routed it. So I lined up this straight edge with these two cut edges of this middle route. I draw that line, come along and do the other side. All right, so then I've got two sets of marks. I don't know if you can tell it from the camera, but this side is a lot wider than this side, which tells me that the whole thing needs to move that direction. At least the neck does. So that really lines up with what I'm saying about this front corner here. If I'm really precise about where the center line is between those two marks, I should probably do this with a ruler, huh? All right, so right there. So that's the center line. If I take my bridge and I set it in the center and I flip the body over, I can tell that the back route lines up pretty perfectly there. So basically everything is centered in the back too in terms of where the holes line up versus the sides of the tremolo route. I just really need to fine tune this neck cavity to get everything to line up. Once you get it mounted, you can sort of tweak the neck and the pocket a little bit and make everything line up, get the strings aligned, get equal space on each side of the strings on the neck. That's all fine, but I don't want to crack the neck pocket in the process, so I'm just going to open up this just very slightly to help out with that. Now there's a lot of tools you could use to open this up just slightly, and I could use my router, but I don't think I need to take that much off. So I'm just going to take a little bit off with this finger sander that I've got. Yeah, this gives me just enough wiggle room that I'm happy with, and I'll have to see how that matches up with my marks on the bridge area. All right, so after just a little bit more fine tuning, I was able to get the lines exactly where I want them. So I measured a straight edge out to this side, a straight edge out to this side. This is with the neck rotated as much this way in the pocket as I can. That puts me right at a point where I'm able to measure out equal distance on both sides of this center line mark. Now, as I measure for the bridge, I'm gonna have to find their appropriate front to back position as well. And that's not quite as easy, but it's not hard. So when I'm trying to locate the bridge on a Strat, one thing I like to do is cheat and try to use the pick guard a little bit. And this is my pick guard. You can see I'm kind of going for a single humbucker, either Tom DeLonge or Eddie Van Halen, depending on how old you are. And I think probably just lining it up as best I can with the neck pocket, checking my gap all the way around, trying to consider the center line in between the front two screw holes. Something like right in there is just about right. It gives me just a tiny gap all the way around the pick guard. It provides me an opportunity to center the pick guard around the tremolo. It just looks right to me. Now, if I want to verify this, one thing that you need to do is measure your scale length. So measure from the back of the nut, well, front of the nut, I guess, depending on which side you're thinking about, but the closest to the bridge, to one of the saddles. You need to have one that's at 25.5, and that's that high E string. It's very, very close. Let me let this one out just a little bit and see if I can't gain just a little bit more space. That's dead on, 25.5. So this is where my bridge is gonna live. I need to mark these holes. That gives me my drilling locations. It also gives me a chance, with everything removed, to just kind of check and make sure that they land in a nice meaty part of this space in between the trim route and the humbucker route. It looks like they're pretty good. I am going to check one more thing. I'm going to hold this over the marks that I just made. I'm going to tape it down, and I'm going to flip it over and make sure that everything looks right on the back side. All right, that's about where I want it. I want to make sure that these holes in the tremolo are in the right spots. I'm going to have a claw coming off of here. I could have as many as 5 springs. I want to make sure they're all going to clear, and I think everything's good there. So I'm going to go ahead and do some center punching and get ready to drill the bridge holes. Now, the question of how big of a hole to drill for these 6 mounting screws on the front of this is sort of dependent upon the size of screws that you're going to use. I will take a caliper and I'll measure the size of the shaft without the threads on it. In this case, it's about 0.1 inches. And then the size of the shaft above the threads. So just at this part right here that actually is wider than the threads, that is 1.3 inches. So I'll try to find a couple of different size drill bits that are in the ballpark, and that would equate to about a 3/32 bit for the main hole, and then enlarging the very top portion of that hole to about 1/4 of an inch. No, sorry, 1/8 of an inch, not 1/4. All right, let me clean this up and I'll switch the drill bits. All right, I've switched to an 1/8 inch drill bit with my tape line marked off for the depth stop, and I'm just barely gonna hit the tops of these. The only reason for doing that is just to keep stress off the wood here. It's not a very thick piece. I don't wanna crack it. And also to keep stress off the paint. This is really hard paint, so I don't wanna crack the paint either. All right, now I'm to the point where I can actually take the tape off and we can locate the bridge. Things are looking really good under here. And just to make sure it centers and fits exactly where I want it to, I'm going to do the center 2 holes first. Awesome. So far so good. I'm just going to put the rest of these in. All right, well that's perfect. I've got nice movement on the bridge and it's centered. It's not moving left to right, but yet it still seems to ride on all the screws front to back, so I'm in a good spot there. And I'm pretty much in the zone that I wanted my springs in on the back. I just wanted to make sure that the springs don't hit the sides of the body as they're installed, and they really don't. So as long as I locate the claw in the right place, I'll be in good shape. Now let's drill for this tremolo claw. What I did was I held up the claw to the back side of this cavity and I marked the holes. And I know that I don't need to drill exactly where the holes are. I need to drill a little bit up from that. One problem that a lot of people have is, how do you get the holes as parallel as possible? You don't have to get them exactly parallel. There's always some upward angle that even Fender would use, because they probably use a long drill bit. It's probably a 10-inch drill bit at a minimum, maybe a 12. But I've got another solution, and I've got this right angle drill that I've been using, and it's kind of a weird apparatus that I bought at a local home store. If I can find a link to this on Amazon, I'll post it. Alright, now those don't have to be exact, but if I was at all close, I should not have any weird holes in the front, and I don't. I didn't come through the front at all, which means I'm in good solid wood, and I don't have to worry about screws poking in and causing unsightly holes in the cavity here. And I'm going to install the trim claw now. And for this, I always do use the longest screwdriver possible. So the claw's in, and I've left probably a little bit more than a ½ inch gap there. I'm just installing the springs now. It's a pretty straightforward process, but I always use an angled pair of pliers just so I can get a good grip on the end of the little hook that goes into the block. So you can see I've got the springs fairly parallel with the sides of the body. It is a little bit closer to this side, but that's okay. That's where I measured it at, and nothing's hitting. So that's the main things. And before I put a back plate on, you have to know that your spring tension is correct. In order to do that, you've got to get the neck on, you've got to get the strings on, you've got to get everything tuned to pitch. So that's way, way in the future. Well, at this point in the episode, I think I'm going to call it quits. We'll pick it up next time, and hopefully we'll get some electronics installed, get this neck on, you know, all kinds of stuff. So I thank you all for hanging with me through these builds. I really love the likes and the comments that you guys give me. I especially appreciate the subscriptions. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time.